Berlin. Eclectique introduces Eclectique workshop series in live streaming.
I'm Domenico. My artist name is Lucretio, and I also make music with my friend Manuel as Analogue Cops. I don't know if you hear about me. And with Blawan as Paracella and many things. I've been producing electronic music since 2007, using vinyl. And I've been working with Electron machines since probably 2008, 2009. The first machine I got was a machine drum. Then when I got the mono machine, then I got the Octatrack, and then I got everything. And I became kind of unofficial endorser for Electron and official endorser for the distribution, Italian distribution, Soundwave distribution. Today we are going to talk about two different machines, the Octatrack and the Digitone. The Octatrack is quite old. This is a MK2 version, so this is newer. But the Octatrack concept first came out in 2014, so it has already 6 years. It's already 6 years old, and we will see that there are some difference that Electron has introduced to the new machine. Digitone came out 3 years ago, and is the new product together with the Digitac that is like in the middle between those machines that are called flagships, okay? So the big machine, the machine that costs a lot of money, and the new machine, the model that are cheapest and easiest to get and funniest in a way. This has a price, the Digitone has a price that standard retail is around 800 euro. The Octatrack, for the new one, you have to pay around 1,300 euros. You can find a used Digitone for 500 euros. You can find a used Electron of the first series for around 700, 600 euros. How many of you has the Octatrack or the Digitone? You? What do you have? Digitone, okay. The other? Nothing, okay? Okay, so then if you have some question in particular about the Digitone, you ask me at the end. For the others, we start to see. So, the Octatrack is a sampler, okay, with 8 tracks of audio, reproducing audio, monophonic, and 8 tracks of MIDI, with which we can control external instruments. So the Octatrack is a machine that can, in a way, replace our digital audio workstation if we want to work with machines and we don't want to work with a computer, with a standard digital audio workstation like Ableton or Logic or Cubase or whatever. The MIDI sequencing is very good on the Electron machine and has some features that are quite innovative in the market. It can be compared as a workstation like with an MPC in the terms of that the MPC also can replace the DAW, but this offers something that is more modern than the standard features that the MPC has. The Digitone is a FM synthesizer with its own sequencer. It has 4 parts, so we can play 4 different sounds. And it has 8 voices of polyphony. That is quite good, I will say. And you also have 4 tracks of MIDI for controlling external MIDI gear. That's good. That's not enough, I would say, to replace a digital audio workstation, but it's still something. So you can find the way to do a little setup for example, for live performance with this. So you can control another like monophonic synthesizer. You can send the clock to a drum machine. You can have some drums controlled by note here, so it's quite good. And the thing, I love them both because this is something quite unique. Before this, I was using a lot of samplers like the Kayas 3000 and the Kayas 1000, the rack. and they were kind of, the sound is good, they're kind of pain in the ass to work, and they are very old in the concept, and this is like new and fresh. And when the Digitone come out, it extends like the concept of groove box. That was a very popular thing in the 90s when manufacturers like Korg and Yamaha, that we think about the Electribe series. The first one was Roland with his MC series, the 303 MC 505. That where the concept of the groove box was we give the musician a box that can make everything. So we just need this box to do all the music. Of course, that's kind of limited in a way, but it was very popular. Then it was more popular with the Electribe machine. The first series, they made a machine for each task. So you have the ER1 for the rhythm, the ES1 for the sampling, the EA1 for the monophonic synthesizer, and the EM1 that was a mix of drums and PCM sounds, so pre-sampled sounds, and packed all together. You can do music with all these machines. Then they extend the thing again with the new Electribe, like the S6 and MX, the big one with the valve that are very popular in the rave culture, and that were like more and more things, because you have like more synthesis, more sampling, more things, so more things to do in a box. This is when this box, this is like the sister of the Digitac. The Digitac is like just a sampler. This is synthesizer, and the amazing thing is that before this, FM synthesis was really obscure and really hard to get creative with, because I don't know if any of you is familiar with FM synthesis, and if somebody has ever used something like the X7 or a CZ of Casio. So these synths are very like buttons, and you have to enter the menu and to change the parameters, and it's quite hard. You waste like an afternoon to make a bass line, and then you say okay. So they have no knobs until now, because so FM synthesis is a particular kind of synthesis that is essentially one oscillator, usually a sine wave, being modulated in pitch by another oscillator that is in the range of the audible frequency. It was invented by John Chowning at Stanford in around 78, 79. He was experimenting with vibrato. Vibrato is applying a pitch modulation to an oscillator with an LFO, and he discovered that if you increase the rate, so if you increase the frequency of this LFO and it becomes a real oscillator, what it does is not anymore a vibrato, but it's a new kind of synthesis. Now we see, and then when he discovered and he patented this synthesis, he sold this patent, Stanford University sold the patent for like $2 million to Yamaha, that made the famous DX series that was so popular in all the 80 songs. And after, I think it was after 20 years, the patent was done, so everybody could use FM synthesis, because before it was not possible to use that kind of special synthesis. So basically here, for example, we can hear the Digitone. We start with the Digitone, then we go to the Octatrack. If you have any questions, stop me. If something is not clear, please stop me and ask me. Don't be scared. On the FM synthesis, we have many oscillators that can be operators. The oscillators that are modulated are called carriers, and the oscillators that modulate something are called modulators. Okay, it's kind of difficult because you have to read a little bit the mathematics behind that. It's not so obscure, but you have to basically, you have a sine wave. Okay, this is just one sine wave. If I modulate the sine wave with another sine wave, happens is that now the two sine waves have the same ratio. The ratio is the ratio between the two frequencies, so they are 1 to 1. So when you change this ratio, you have more harmonics coming out in the spectrum of the sounds, and the harmonics that are generated, you can discover the frequency of these harmonics with a formula, and by looking at these things called Bessel functions. So these Bessel functions are this function where you can find what will be the amplitude of the part of the spectrum. Okay, so this is like, but at the end of the day, the thing was that having these charts, this Bessel function and the ratio, you can construct every sound. So what they were doing at Yamaha, they were taking a saxophone, looking at the spectrum, decomposing the spectrum with this formula, and making the patches that you have on the DX7. So you say, this is like kind of a saxophone or a trumpet or an organ. That was kind of very surprising at the time, because memory for computers, for machines, was very expensive. So you don't have like the romplers like that came out at the end of the 90s, where you can put one sample of each note, and it was very difficult to replicate a real instrument. Okay, so if we change, now we are here just the first sine wave. Okay, if I'm changing the ratio of the modulator, higher ratio and increased index, so increased value of modulation, the FM synthesis degenerates quite fast into noise. So it's also interesting for creating instruments that are like in the noise range of the spectrum, like for example cymbals or hi-hats or something like that. Now we are just to listen to the radio. And now we are just hearing two operators, one carrier and one modulator. The Digitone offers 4 operators, okay, and 8 different algorithms. These algorithms are basically, then you can come here and I will show to you how they interact with each other, okay, because one carrier can be modulated by one modulator, and the other modulator can be modulated serially by another modulator, or we can have different change, like free carrier with just one modulator that is modulating all the three, and this change quite drastically the sound. The thing is that all this is kind of heavy, okay? But with this machine, you have a lot of control at your hands that before with this FM synthesis was like kind of obscure, but then now you can change, like now I can introduce the other operator. Changing the frequency. So we have the operators, we have the index of these modulators, that is the amount of modulation and the volume of the final oscillator part, and also each of the modulators has a ADSR. So you have the attack, delay, self-stay, and release. So you can hear just, now we were hearing just everything, because we have like very fast attack, very kind of no decay, and sustain forever, so stay all the time. But if I change the envelope of the first, you can hear that the component is just very short and happening at the beginning. I can make it for the second one too. FM synthesis is particularly good for, especially when you try to emulate like metallic sound and this kind of stuff that is very hard to replicate with subtractive synthesis. Okay. So I can have very short envelope, a combination, or I can have very slow envelopes, like with long attack. If I like to do like something like textures and pads. Then if I change the algorithm, you can say, on the machine it's quite simple. The thing, you have 8 algorithms and then you can experiment. And if you want to look deep into FM synthesis, there is a book of John Chowning that is FM synthesis for musician, and is basically explaining how all this mathematics is beyond the FM synthesis. So if you want to, like, say, I want to do a metallic percussion, I want to do like a brass or something, you can follow these guidelines, and with the different algorithms go into some way or another. Now we just listen to the different algorithms. This is algorithm 2. Algorithm 2, we have 2 carriers and 2 modulators, so 2 mirroring structures. Algorithm 3 is with 3 carrier and just 1 modulator. And then on the FM synthesis we have another thing that is called feedback, and it's basically that 1 or 2 or more, but here is just 2 at maximum, of the oscilloscope of the operators can modulate itself, and that generate another wide part of the spectrum, particularly into the kind of the territory of high frequency of, so always of noise. You can hear it. So you can hear that the sounds are very interesting, and now I'm not looking at any maths chart and not thinking about really about the math of the ratio. I'm just doing it on the machine, and this, for me, this machine is so cool because you can just experiment and you can not even care about what it is what, but then maybe you get more into it. It's very creative. Then we have the standard detune. So 2 of the operators can be detuned. And then they put this thing that is called harmonics. So essentially, FM synthesis was just made with sine wave for 2 reasons. One reason was that sine wave was more inexpensive for the chip to get in terms of calculation. And the other one, that is the sine wave, contains only one part of one harmonic, okay? The fundamental harmonic. This way of having just one fundamental harmonic helps to keep the behavior of the FM synthesis more predictable. If we use as carrier or modulator one other different waveform, like a square wave or like a soft tooth, we increase the harmonics and we have very complex sounds that, once again, they degenerate quickly into noise. So you have this knob and you can change the waveform of the carrier signal. Or you can change the waveform of A and B. in combination with the okay. Then we have other algorithms, like we have a serial algorithm number 4, where there is a cascade of every operator modulating the next one until to the first one, and this is the one that produces more complex spectrum. So it's very easy. We play with the parameters of FM synthesis, and what we have on this machine that we don't have on the usual FM synthesizer is a filter, because at the beginning it was thought FM synthesis do not have filters on the same machine. This was especially a thing of price. Okay, so the chip was required to do the operation was so expensive that they could not put another filter, otherwise the synthesizer would have been too expensive, so they decided to put it like this. Here we have a digital filter that is a multi-band filter. We can have a low pass with this envelope, of course. Or you can have a high pass. And then if you double click filter, you have another multi-band that is just a low cut with an high cut, and this is used to take out of the spectrum of the sound the undesired part of frequency. So we can. Okay. Then we have the main envelope of the amplitude, classically ADSR, less complex of what you have on the standard FM synthesizer, that is like a multi-stage envelope with at least 4 stages. But here we have also a nice digital overdrive. It's quite nasty. And then on the machine, if you double click on the amp page, you get to the FX send. So the machine has 1 delay and 1 reverb and 1 chorus. Just one for all the machines. So it's not that every sound has its own effect, but you have just this main effect on the auxiliary fantastic channel, and you can send an amount of the sound to it, but then when you change a parameter, you will change the parameter for just this one effect, and it will change for all the sounds, of course. So we have the chorus. It's kind of nice. That. Stereo. Then we have delay. Very classical delay with quantized time if you want, or unquantized. It can go as long as 2 bar. It can be a ping pong, so you have interplay between left and right, and you can decide the width of this ping pong. This is a lot of width. This is 0 width. And then you have a filter on the delay that is kind of nice, because you have still again like a band pass where you can decide the low shelving and the high shelving, so you can take out the low end or the high end. Just leave it. And then the feedback is kind of nice because it's kind of resonating, so you have to take care, because when you increase it, Now it's kind of stable, but we put more. Okay, so it's kind of doing its work. Then what we have in the machine is typical of Electron. Now I cleared everything. We have a sequencer, okay? So a step sequencer in the classical tradition of every step sequencer you've seen in the world, where you can put one node. Step. Just pressing. The cool thing about the Electron sequencer is that you can, in terms of a step sequencer, you can just press one of the triggers that you put and change its parameter, like the note, for example. Very easy. But the thing is that you can not just change the note, but you can change every parameter on the screen that you can see on the machine, and this is called parameter lock, and this is the typical feature of Electron gear since the very beginning. So, for example, we can change the filter just on one. One, we can change the effect. Automation and reprogramming of the sound on the fly, or if you prefer, you can record it on the machine, just hitting rec plus play and play. And then you can record every movement you do on the parameters. So this is called parameter lock. So you have this sequencer, and not only you have this parameter lock that is very cool, you have since the last year or two on the machine. First, when they introduced these new machines, they introduced this thing called conditional trig. So you can put some trig. And you can, with the condition, you can say that one of the trig is playing just one time every 2 or one time every 3. So you can have very nice variation on that, like that. And I'm just playing one button. One button. So then you can put on every step, you can put a different probability, and it will sound kind of randomly. Or you can just put all your steps, and you have a parameter called probability. Now probability is 100%, so every trigger is playing. If I press if I put probability to 50%, it's like going to play one time every 2, but not exactly one time every 2. So lot of cool stuff with the sequencer. This trig condition stuff is on all the new machines, so on all the Digitone, Digitac, model sample, model cycle, and on our Octatrack, Analog 4, and Analog Rhythm MK2. The MK1, if you buy a MK1 that you can find cheap, they don't have the conditional parameter, and is the only thing that really change apart from the look. They try to make the navigation of the new machine, of the new MK2, a little bit easier, so they put more buttons and you have to press like less shift function thing, but is an improvement, but it's not so big, so you will not find hard to use an MK1. What for those that doesn't have an Electron machine, if you consider buying one, especially for the bigger one like the Octatrack, you have to understand that the curve of learning is quite steepy. So you take a lot of time to do something very basic, and I'm teaching also privately to people because a lot of times the people get the machine, they are stuck at the very beginning, and I don't get how to make a pattern longer, I don't get any sound, because they have a different mindset respect the traditional machines, synthesizers that you find, especially of Japanese manufacturers. And the manual is quite hard to grasp, and they don't want to change it, they say that it's okay like that. So you have to like broke your head in a little bit, but you don't have to be scared, because then when the machine, then when you start getting the thing, you start to get new and new and new and new, and you don't get bored of the stuff. So it takes a lot. It takes a little bit more time, but then you will keep it for more time, because I have the Octatrack since 2010, and then 15, and I'm still like loving it, and I will not change it for anything else. So I think it makes a lot. Then we look at another things, a couple of things of the Digitone, then we go to the Octatrack. I don't know if you have any questions. Good.
I have a question about through machines, but I guess I should just wait till.
About
through machines. Through machines and pickup machines.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
then we see. Yeah.
Later.
I keep it in mind. The last thing that we have on the Digitone that is very cool is that you have an LFO, and it all Electron machine has 1, 2, 3, in the case of the Octatrack, LFOs, and you can modulate any parameter. And this is really cool, and this is especially cool for FM synthesis, because before FM synthesis just have like a LFO to modulate amplitude or pitch, but here you can modulate like everything. So if I put, for example, the ratio of A, I clear the sound so you can hear better. So if I modulate like the ratio of 8, or I can modulate the index, so the level of A. Very easy. Now I'm just modulating. I have two operators with the same ratio, and I'm modulating the level of the A, so the modulator of C, the only one modulator. Then once again, the LFO parameters of the Electron have this thing that you cannot see like in 1 bar, half bar, 2 bars, 1/8 bar. They have these things called, on each machine, they have this thing called multiplier and speed. So the time of the LFO is the combination of the multiplier and of the speed. So if you want slow modulation, you keep the BPM of the multiplier, or you add BPM to 1. And if you have the speed to the maximum, you have a 2 bar modulation. If you put the speed to 32, so to an half of that, you have 4 bars, and so on. And if you want faster tempo, you increase the multiplier. So if I put the multiplier to 2, I have 1 bar, to 4, to 8, and so on. And you can have like very, very fast modulation up to 1K. That is basically becoming FM synthesis once again. So you have an extra FM synthesis, FM oscillator to modulate other parameters. In short, the thing is that the LFO can become a real oscillator in a way. One cool thing is that also the LFO has a fade, so you can or fading out. And you have 2 LFO, and the second LFO can modulate the parameters of the first one. So for example, we can change the speed of the first one and modulate it like. And then the last thing is that the LFO has this thing called mode, and this you find it once again on all the machines. So basically the LFO can run in the background, or it can be triggered by each note. Now it's free, but I can trigger it. So every time it triggers. Or you can put it to 1, and you have like an envelope like, because it's just doing 1 cycle, or half, that is like half envelope. As we say, we have, you can play charge, and then also in the machine you have that is to see an arpeggio. That is really cool. So let's keep it simple. The machine is packed with a lot of factory presets that has a combination of parameters, and many of them sound good, many of them sound like crap, but it's good because you can try to imitate this sound and start and understand how FM synthesis works. It's a classical bell. So if I put the notes of it, if I put the length like to 16, now you get it, that is longer. If I enable the arpeggio, screen of the arpeggio, and this is for all the machine, you have a little sequencer inside the arpeggio, so you can take off some notes. And change the pitch of just one step. Very interesting stuff, and the speed of the arpeggio can be slower, up tempo. Any question on the Digitone? If you don't have a question, then we go to the Octatrack. Then maybe at the end put the mask, and if you want to see the machine and see the screen, whatever, more closer, that is better. So the Octatrack, we said that it's the flagship because it is bigger, costs more, makes more stuff, and has more outputs. That's 4 outputs that can be used individually, and basically is a sampler with its own sequencer that has all the features of that we see on the Digitone, and plus it has a very flexible and smart, I would say, algorithm for time stretch. So if we put a sample and we want to time stretch it, like in Ableton, it does the job quite good, and you have like I would say 10 BPM plus minus of range to change, and you still hear the sound pretty good. Then you can increase it or decrease it more, but the sound tend to become grainy in a way, so you lose a lot of quality, but that can be interesting also in a way. So we have 8 audio track and 8 MIDI tracks. We will look essentially at the audio tracks, because the MIDI tracks does fundamentally the same, but you can trigger an external MIDI gear, and you have arpeggio on this machine that you don't have here for the external MIDI tracks. Also on the digital you don't have it, so it is the plus. It has a kind of many things that it has, because otherwise you would not buy this and you would buy only digital. So they kind to differentiate the products and to keep some features only for the most expensive machine. Each audio track has this concept of machine, and now we see the machine, so we see also the pickup machine and the through machine. Essentially, every track has its own machine, and then it has its own envelope, its own 3 LFOs, and 2 effects. That in this case the effects are per track, so they are not like this that they are just 2 effects. Every track you can decide if it has a reverb or a delay, and a filter or an equalizer or a distortion, with its own parameters, of course, its own parameter lock and stuff. So if you double press on the track T, you have T1, T2, 3, 4, T5, T6, T7, T8, and these are the track. And you have to look a little bit of the colors. Is one of the first things, because when you see a track that is green, it means that it is not on mute. And if it is in red, it is not on mute and it is the selected track. And if it is on yellow, and it is selected but muted. Okay? So you have to see this, because sometimes you put the things in mute and you don't understand what is in mute, and you lose a little bit to yourself. Also, the first very thing is that you press this mix button, and if you want to hear the source that you're going to sample, now I'm putting the Digitone is going to the Octatrack, and the Octatrack is going to the main PA. You have two things called direct, and this is the direct sound to hear what you are sending to the machine. You also have a gain, so you can amplify the signal that you're sending to the machine, that the machine is receiving. So you have two direct controls that are for the input AB and input CD. This looks really easy, but if you buy the machine, this thing is at page 128. So usually the people is like, what the fuck, I don't hear anything. Yes, because you have to go to mixer and to put the direct on. And they put it on page 128, so it's not so clever in a way of the organization of the manual. Then, when you have solved this, when you double click on a track, you have the machines that are available are called static, flex, through, neighbor, and pickup. So, static is the machine that you use to reproduce a sample that is in the compact flash card. You have a compact flash card that is kind of the hard drive of the machine, and it comes with a compact flash of 128 gigabyte. I think you can go to up to 256, and it's still reading, so you can put a lot of stuff. No, I think it's 8, 16. The one that they give to you is 8, maybe 16. Then you can put a 32 up to 256. But you have to check, because if you buy bigger ones, then you can have like compatibility issues. So I would recommend to not buy it too big. So the static machine reads from the sample that you have saved on the compact flash, or that are already on the compact flash, or that you can put just connecting with the USB. If you connect the machine to the USB port of your computer and you select the USB mode, your computer will see the machine as a USB stick, and you basically put your sound inside. You will see when you connect the machine to the computer, you see just first the USB stick, then you click on the USB stick and you see many folders, and these folders are the folders of the sets. The sets are the main box where you put all your projects, and then inside this folder you have the box with the audio files of the projects, and you just drag and drop the sound on these audio files folder, and it's fast if you want to upload something. They didn't make yet any kind of utility for the new machine like Digitone and Analogue rhythm. You have this application called Electron transfer that makes the things a little bit easier, but here you have to do it like the other way. It's just drag and drop on the folder, then you will see a lot of files called R and B and K, and they are just the bank and the arrangement, and you don't care about this because you cannot read it and you cannot make anything of that. Only the machine can make something with it. So the static is for reading the compact flash. Then you have the flex, that is the machine. Static and flex are kind of identical, but flex has access to the RAM. The machine comes with 256 megabytes of RAM. That is the memory where you record your own samples, where you've made some kind of audio operation like normalizing, trimming, the standard stuff, usual stuff that you can make with any audio editor like Audacity or whatever. You can do it on the machine, but just with the flex machine. Okay, so the flex machine has assigned, every X machine can pick up the sample that is recorded in one buffer of the memory, and you can edit it and you can play it back. But if you don't save it to the compact flash, it's gone when you turn off the machine. So the standard procedure is to take the sample, then we will take a sample, take the sample, edit the sample, and then when you're ready, put it on the compact flash and then change the machine to static. So this is the recommendation that I will give to have like a proper workflow. So we just put something on the static that maybe just a kick. On this kick we can change the pitch. If the time stretch is on, we can change the pitch without changing the time of the sound. Then we have this thing called rate, that is actually the sample rate, and when we decrease the sample rate, the sound of course becomes longer. If the sample rate, if the rate is to 0, you hear no sound because it's not going through the wavetable. But if we put it to negative values, the sound is playing backwards. And you can decide the rate of how much it is on. Then you have this thing called starter length that is particularly, let me put a loop. Or you can change the starting point. And if I put the sample in loop mode, then you have a standard envelope that is not really standard because you don't have attacks, decay, sustain, release, but you have all that is sustain, and then you have release that is something, a sum of decay and release. And by default they are infinite, so the sound is going forever if you don't change that, like before. Like 4 is all length. When you can sample on the machine, when you sample on the machine, you have a maximum time. The machine works at 24 bit with a sample rate of 44,100 hertz. You can change the bit resolution to 16 if you want, but it sounds way better on 24. If you put all the memory, you can record up to 6 minutes, almost 5 minutes 35 seconds on the machine. So the maximum that you can sample is that long, but if you put something on the compact flash, there are actually kind of no limit to the length. So you can put like a WAV file of 13, 15, 20 minutes if it fits in the compact flash, and it plays, and it just plays forever. So there is this different thing that from the RAM and the hard drive. Okay. Once again, in the amp case, and one thing that is called balance, that is what on almost every other machine in the world is called pan. Okay, but they call it balance. Okay, like in the stereo balance, left and right. Okay. And of course, if you think, for example, you can put on the LFO, you can put this balance And so you can have something like this. You can modulate the pan and you can create very strange things, especially if you put like a random way. I don't know if you hear more stereo than there, not hearing so much, but it's there. So on the source page where we have the pitch and this rate and this length for the sample, we also have a thing that is called retrig, that is basically retrigging, and you say how many retrig you want. Now they were 5, now they are 6. I can put it to 43 or infinite. Okay, they go with the old. So these retrigging are coupled with the old parameter. If you don't put the old long enough, it will stop, even if you put it long. So the sustain is before the retrigging. And you can change the time of the retrigging. Change the sound very drastically. So this was the source page and the amp page that are very identical on the static and the dynamic. Then we have the LFO, so we have 3 LFO that we can assign to every parameter. Like for example, we can assign the LFO to the pitch. There is another bonus that is LFO designer. So we have like this 16-point wave that we can create, and we can create our own LFO if we are very nerd and very into using our social life. Of these, then we have 2 FX pages. Okay. The 2 FX pages are not identically because on the second page you find also the delay and free reverb, while on the first page we don't find this effect. So if you want to put a delay or a reverb, you have to remember that you just can put it on the last FX2. So if you want to put a filter and a delay, you don't put the delay, you don't put the filter on the FX2, because otherwise then you don't know how to do. So we have, for example, we have the filter, another filter, then we can have we have 3D reverb. One is called plate, very classical plate reverb. One spring that sounds like that. With his own filter, you can take out the low end of it. Or you have this dark reverb, that's kind of a complex reverb with pre-delay that can be very long. And still you have this high pass and low pass on the effect, and you have this thing called shelving gain and shelving filter. That is a shelving filter, but that is acting inside the reverb itself. So it's changing the resonating characteristics of the reverb, and it's not kind of the same thing of filtering it later. You have to hear it. Less gain, more gain, that's more charge. You can change the frequency, of course, so you can be darker. And then you have this delay, that is very classical delay. Feedback. Also the delay as a filter. This delay is different from this one because it's not resonating, so it's not going to break your speakers or your ears like this one. With this one you have to be more careful. With this one you can put it to the maximum. It's like classical digital filter, digital delay. Then as other effects you have this equalizer, just doing what it says. A digital equalizer that is kind of isolated. A phaser. That can become quite nasty. A flanger, a chord. Dab, speed. So, in terms of sound design, you can do a lot of stuff. And once again, what is good of this machine is that yes, you can know a lot about synthesis and sound design and got extremely good results, but you can know almost nothing and still have fun with that or become more interesting into what is really happening. But the machine, you see just turning knobs, very different stuff, and then you have a compressor that's kind of okay, comb filter, it's kind of nasty. And a lo-fi that is basically with a sample rate reduction, bandwidth reduction, amplitude distortion. If you like digital distortion, there is a lot. Sound is very digital, but it's for me, very nice digital sound. So then we see, so the static, we will later look at the flex, that is basically the machine where you sample. And so one thing is that when you get lost, I seldom saying that, or especially for the people that have it, I don't know if you know it, but when you get lost with the sound and you make too many changes, you can just press the pages button. So here is the same. You press like, I put LFO, I don't want LFO, I put LFO clear. I put FX, I don't want FX, I put FX clear. I don't want the other effects, and I put clear. So now the sound is kind of clean. It's still the trick, so I have to do the source page clear, and now it's back to normal. So now we will take a look at the other machine. The other machine, the first one is through, and then we have neighbor and pickup. So through is a machine that just take the signal that is coming into the machine, okay, and edit. Change, so you can apply effects and modulation to the sound. So if you now we are just so now we are going. We say that we see that if we press this mix button, we can go to the we can increase the direct page, so the volume that is going to the machine, and we can hear what is actually going into the machine. But now I take out the mix, so I'm not hearing anything. The true machine is a machine that basically does this. On the source page you have the input, so you can enable one of the two input, or all four, or two of them, or some of them. Now if I put just A, I take just A. And now I'm not hearing anything, because the true machine, being a machine, needs a trigger to be enabled. So the sound to pass by and being edited and being processed need to be need a trigger. So if I put a trigger, so if now I put something here. I'm hearing all, here I have one bar, and like before, the true machine has his own envelope with his own hold, that is the sustain and the release. So now the hold and the release are to infinite, and I'm hearing everything all the time. But if I close it, the hold, so it acting like an envelope on the sound where I put the trigger. So now I put the trigger on one, and I have this. If I put it here, it's just playing on two parts. I can put it in another part. It's like kind of enveloping the input. Okay. So if I want, I can put source inside that and change the source of how it's enveloped like. Then of course I can apply effect. Parameter logs. Like that. So you use the through machines like to process the sound. This can be because you want to process the sound because you want to add effects and you don't have the effects, or because you like the effects of the machine, or because you like to apply these parameter locks, so you want to record this kind of automation, okay? Or you can think that when they design this machine, they think that this can be like a little app for a live performance, and that in a way it can like substitute a mixer. So like for example, I'm not using a classical live mixer. I'm just going from this machine to the Octatrack, and so this could be my real setup if I go to a place and there is not enough space for having a line mixer, or if they don't have the money to rent a live line mixer, or if whatever, I can do the live and be totally independent. So making this kind of process can pack the things up, because I can just go with 2 machines or 4 machines here, process them, and then go using just like a input, like a line input of the DJ mixer, and being totally independent. So this is why you use a through machine, and it's like a utility kind of stuff. Then the other thing you were asking is we've seen before the neighbor machine. The neighbor machine is very easy. The neighbor machine is just like a machine where you can add 2 effects and extra modulation for the previous track. So for example, if on my track I have this sound, and imagine that I say, yes, I have 1 distortion and a delay, but it's not enough. I want more effects, so I want another reverb and another filter. So on the second track, on the track after, I put a neighbor machine. I still need a trigger to enable the sound to go by, so we can create kind of enveloped processing of the previous track, and putting like a reverb and a filter. So it is basically to add effects on the previous one. If you don't have enough, or if I want to put a compressor, so basically you sacrifice one of the audio tracks to have this extra processing that you can once again modulate. So you can add extra modulation, extra parameter locking. And then last but not least, you have this thing called pickup machine. The pickup machine is a machine that is especially designed for live performance. I mean, you can still use it in the studio, but it's something that is more oriented into live performance, because basically it's a recorder that is thought to be like a loop pedal of the classic loop pedals that you have for guitar playing. So you press rec, and the pickup machine is recording what you play, not quantizing it, and just having a stream where you can overdub. So it needs a little bit of setup. So you go to the recording 1 page, and you put that you want as input A, B, A plus B, so choose mono, 1 mono, choose 1 stereo, whatever you want. I put like A and B. I don't want CD. And then you have this parameter called RLen, that is recording length. Recording length is when you sample something, is like just you are asking the machine all the RAM that you have available at the moment. And usually you leave it to the max, because you don't know how much you're going to sample, and you just sample how much you need. But in the case of the pickup machine, to have this loop going, you usually tell it a length. In this case, I'm playing 1 bar, so I just say 16. It can be 32 or 48 if you want some odd, or 64 or whatever. and of course we leave the loop. So once the machine is going, if I press Rec 1, but very important, all the operation of recording samples on the machine, this is like hidden in the manual somewhere. But when you want to record something, being that a flex machine or being that a pickup machine, the step edit button, so the rec button, the circle, red circle, has to be unlit. Because otherwise the recording is not starting. There's something like, why? I suppose that is because the memory can't be occupied at the same time in recording triggers and recording audio for a very like CPU kind of architecture, I suppose, but I think it's like that. So you have to remember to unlit when you record, you unlit this. And if you want to record, you start the recording on the pickup machine with Rec 1. I don't know if you have the MK1 or the MK2. MK2, cool. Because with the MK1 you have to press function and the red button here, the left one, that is Rec 1. Okay? So if you just press Rec 1, and it's going to okay, so you just recording and then it's just thought because then you can have the thing going and record like in a, imagine if you have like a singer or an instrument player and you don't want like to have a MIDI quantized stuff, and then you can make overdubs of that and record the overdubs, okay? And then you can stop the machine, but when you stop the machine, the machine you are losing. You have a very short amount of time where you can still click and go to audio edit and find your sound, okay? So in a way you don't lose, if you don't you can overdub, but then if you stop the machine, okay, and you say, okay, I liked what I was playing, you can still like save it and put it to the compact flash. So it can be also a good thing to use maybe in the studio if you have somebody play and you want just to loop him and to recording without having to be quantized to the first beat or whatever. This can be done on the machine. Okay. Yeah. So these are all the machine. Do we have any question?
Yeah. Okay. So what I do is I have the through machine coming in, and then I set it to record at a different track. So, but I usually have my Digitone and Digitech coming in to A and B, and I can't get it to quantize. I can't get it when I record the step. It's always like a little bit off when I have the pattern in the Octatrack. So I just can't get it to work.
Okay, so maybe if you want to come here to see, if you want to come all here, I put the mask on. Just safety. So, okay. Clear everything. Now, this is the master and this is the slave.
Okay. Yeah.
But
I would prefer that though, because I don't like using this. I don't like using this as my
so
master.
don't use it as a master.
Okay, great.
It doesn't change really anything because the MIDI clock is kind of good in the machine.
Yeah.
Don't worry if you see like this drifting.
Okay.
Is normal.
Okay.
Because MIDI is like very like old thing, and the calculation is not so precise because there is this thing called pulse per quarter. So the MIDI clock, when you have a MIDI clock, the machine is not saying, hey, other machine, I am 128. That is what the digital audio workstation and the computer world, they are communicating with us. And this is why you usually have problems when you are trying to sync computer stuff with MIDI gear. Because the computer say, my clock is 128 BPM, that makes, I don't know, every quarter is 557 millisecond, okay? MIDI doesn't work like that. MIDI sends a tick, MIDI clock is a tick, so tick, 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 and it sends like 24 of these ticks for every quarter. And this machine, the other machine is calculating, okay, I received 24 ticks in 1 bit. I make the division, and this is the value. But the value, of course, you have like 24-bit architecture, and you have to truncate in some way or another. So one time you truncate in a way, the other way the machine truncates in another. So it's always swinging. But they swing together, so this is not a problem. So you put this on MIDI. Of course, clock send. I have received. I suggest that for the machines, if the machine is not receiving the clock, don't enable the clock. That can sometimes give problems. Okay. It looks like a stupid stuff, but it's not, because sometimes also if you're using like a MIDI keyboard, sometimes you have some kind of message that interfere with the clock, and the machine can stop or whatever. So now I have it because I have it before, but I don't have it to have clock receive. On the new machine, and also on the Octatrack, MK2, MK1, you have clock send and transport send. So the clock is the speed, the tempo, and the transport is stop, play, resume. Okay, so I'm sending, okay, both clock and send and transport. Here I go to project, MIDI, sync, and I say that I want to receive, transport, and clock. So now it's running together, okay? Okay. Now if I write something here, I can hear it because I have it on the mix. Yeah. So if I don't need a true machine, I don't recommend you to use the true machine to sample. Okay? It's a waste of a track. Yeah. The true machine, you need it when you are like in a live setup, like I told before, and you don't have a mixer, so I don't have any choice here. I have to go here. Yeah. Or if you want to process and you say, I would like to have an extra LFO on the cutoff, and I don't have it here, I want to, and I put it here to modulate. But if you don't want to modulate, just go with the mix and use the direct. Okay. If you're sampling a stereo source, you will need stereo. If you're sampling just one of the two, you will need A on the left and B on the right. So it's normal. So if you're doing that and you say, fuck, it's only on the left, no, it's okay. You can have AB, you can have CD. Okay, now we are on AB. You have the gain. Here you have just green, yellow, and red. No red line because it sounds bad. So just like that. It's no. It's fully digital, so it's just digital clipping, and it's just like shit. Usually, yellow is better because you have like less quantization noise. But if you're using 24-bit recording, that is what I recommend, you don't have this kind of issues because you have so many dynamic range that you don't really have this kind of issue. So once you have done this, okay, the procedure is like that. You have to go this, you have to go to rack 1 once again and tell him that
These ones,
doesn't really change, but always better to select just the source that you have, okay? To avoid any kind of digital noise. Record length, not to the max, but to what you want. Now I will do just 16, but it can be 32 or 64, it doesn't change, okay? Now, I go here, I put a flex machine. When I put the flex machine, I go press function bank with this rack button lead, and what I have to put is a recording trig. Okay? The recording trig is doing this, is when I receive the trig, I start the recording, and I'm recording for 16 steps because I told him before. So if you look at here, you have to go to his own right buffer. Okay. That can be whatever, but I recommend to use 1 on 1 and 2 on 2, just to be like, don't get crazy with that. So if I go here and I do this, it's already here. And it's quantized.
Okay, so basically what I want to do is I want these to be on this trig. So every time I do it, it's like a millisecond shorter on here. So now, like basically, I'll record this in, and then because I want to play on both machines, and then record what's going on the Digitect and Digitone in here, and I want this to be quantized, then back, and then delete the Digitone and Digitect.
Yeah, you can. Look, so it's 2 steps. So the first step is putting this.
I think this is what I've never done. I've never done this.
This is quantizing. Of course, you can quantize it on the first, but not.
That's what I've been talking about.
You can on the first, but can be on the third, can be on the 7th. If I have a voice just here, it doesn't. It makes more sense that I put it here because I want the voice plus the tail. And if I put this, it's like silence, 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 voice, finish. So I don't have the tail. So you have to think where the sound is. Now I have something very stupid and I put it on the beginning just to explain.
Yeah, perfect.
But you have to think. You have to think the length. The length is usually 1 bar, 2 bar, 3 bar, 4 bar. But the position is where there is the sound. And where then you will put the trig. Okay, also the playback trig. Okay. So now if we do this, it's recording every time. So it's fact because if I press stop, it's not precise.
Yeah, no, but I want this to be precise.
You want this to be precise. So you have to do this. When you put the trig, you put the trig and then you press function, and it becomes blinking. When it's blinking, it means that is 1 shot recording trig. It means that is when the machine encounters the trig, it starts the recording and it recording just 1 time. So the step is bank with this function bank. You put the blinking and then you arm it with function yes. Now when we start.
Okay, so now is this stored in track 1, right?
Yes. And now if I delete this.
Can you play? Yeah, but I want to play these. If you play these at the same time, will they be quantized? Like, or because every time I play this, it's a second off now. Like because I can tell on the kick when
yes, they are not done now. Perfect. So I go back here. I put it here, and if I go here.
Oh wow! Perfect. Yeah.
You cannot. There will be 1 millisecond. But you cannot read it.
Okay. Cool.
It's just 1. It's just the input. Just the physical time.
I think my problem was this recording trig because it wasn't.
It's the only way. You have to put it must be 1 shot recording trig because otherwise it's not. This again is something that is there hidden in the manual, and it's like, for me it would be like the first thing to tell me because usually you are using another machine and you want this to be quantized. So now,
because I want to now like add a step in here. So I want to copy to put it in there and still be.
And of course, this can be done also on the resampling.
Okay. Yeah.
So if I want to do sampling on the next track, I go to the next track, I put flex, I put it to record just A,
Yeah.
I tell him recording length 16, then I go here, I told him here there is the recording trig, blinking because it's one shot, right? Then I go here, because I have to tell him A, I have to go here, but it's just C. Then when I say here, I say, when you want the sampling, it's not AB, it's not say D.
It's track 1, right?
It's track 1 or master or whatever. Okay, so put main, just.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Sick. And you can tweak the sound, do all the crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Of course, you have to remember that if I have put something here, that's amazing. Okay, so this, if I put something like, I want this, like. I have to put the recording trig here. Here. I arm it. And it's here.
Oh.
Now it's not one shot. So
Yeah.
I arm it. And now it's here. Okay. Now I take off the trig. And it's here. So as it starts here, I put it here.
Okay. Cool.
You have to remember this because otherwise, then with the takes and with the stuff is a little bit. You want to do the proper. Of course, you can change that. Other questions?
Thank you. I kind of have another one about MIDI. Like if I want to use a keyboard and plug it into the MIDI in, I still want to be able to control other things with the Octatrack as well. Do I need a MIDI something to put them together?
You have two choices. The first choice is that you buy one of these box with two input and one output, with two input and one two input and one output, okay, and you put it here, okay, so you put the block and the keyboard. That's okay. But still, you can here put the keyboard here, and then you have, it's a little bit pain in the ass a little bit, because then you have to go to the MIDI keyboard, to the MIDI part here, if you want to see.
Sure.
So, when you go to the MIDI part, MIDI source, no? Imagine, here we have function project, MIDI channels. Recommend to use, I don't know if you use auto channel, okay? So here is 11, okay? You have your MIDI keyboard on 11, or not, because what I suggest is that here, MIDI configuration channel, the auto channel is on 10, not 11. On the Digitone is the same. So if you put the auto channel on 10, you can still play those tracks of the Digitone. 1, 2, 3, 4, just selecting them like this. Or if you go to the MIDI and you say that you want to send out to like channel 10, 11, when you select this, you control the Octatrack. So
cool.
you have to keep on the Digitact or on the Digitact one MIDI track that is like service track, because you select just to route the MIDI flux.
Thank you. Yeah, cool.
Okay. Any other question, doubt, information, whatever? So, as we were saying, you can connect a MIDI keyboard. They have this thing called auto channel. Okay, so you don't have to change the MIDI keyboard, the channel of the MIDI keyboard every time to match it with the machine, but you just select the auto channel on the keyboard, and then you select, you choose the machine on, you choose the track on the machine, and the keyboard is playing the selected track. What you have to take care is that this machine has only 2 octaves. It's playing only 2 octaves. I think the Digitone is playing 4. Okay, so sometimes you press the keyboard and you are not hearing any sound because you are not on the right octave. So just like C3 and C4 are responding to what you are playing. If you are not this kind of problem, because it's C7. What I want to also to show you here very quick is that if I put here very fast. On the configuration of the machine, you can use, I don't know if you know that you can use both 4 outputs, putting the configuration into Studio. Then you have the double bar and you put it, no? So you can use both 4 output, and then you have another option that is called track 8 can be used as a normal track, so as an additional sample playing, sampling, or neighbor, or pickup, or whatever. Or you can use it as a master track. The master track basically just take the input of all the tracks and processing, and you can add modulation and parameter locks and stuff. So for example, if I put in master, I sacrifice one track, but I can put like a filter, and it's filtering all. Then we didn't see that you have this thing called scenes, where you can assign different parameters to this crossfade, so you can do something like that. And you can assign many things, like I don't know, reverb. All the parameters of all machines can be locked, not only the one on the master. Okay. But then you have this cool thing that is called, when you select like an effect, like the delay, you have a second page where you have many different options. Like in the reverb, you have the pre-reverb. In the frequency, in the filter part, you can decide if the filter is a peak or a bell. But here you can decide with the delay can become a bit repeater. You tried the bit repeater of the delay? You tried the bit repeater of the delay?
I don't really understand the bit repeater.
So the bit repeater is like, if you say that you want to lock, you lock it. Crazy. So, first thing you have to set it like lock, okay? When it's locked, what it becomes? It becomes that if the sign is different from 0, nothing is happening. But if the sign is 0, is activating the bit repeater. And you have to remember, because if I leave it to 0, I don't hear nothing. Because the bit repeating is repeating nothing, okay? So you have to remember that if I don't hear nothing, it's because the bit repeating probably on the master is not. Of course, you can use it also on another track, it doesn't have to be on the master, okay? Then you have to think, 2 parameters are important. Feedback, if you put it to the maximum, the feedback, the loop is repeating forever. And if I decrease the feedback, it stops. And that can be something in between. Feedback is controlling how many repetitions, and the time, of course, is controlling how much quantization. So if I put it to 64, it's a 1 bit. To 48 is 1 bit and a half, is quarter bit. And so on, so if I want far shorter is 42. And then you have the usual filter for the library. And of course, when you take something out of the bit repeater, it's gone. Okay. So you have also this kind of cool bit repeater. And if you want more, that you just some obscure there also in the manual, is that you can control the bit repeater time with the keyboard. So if you press function and the down arrow, the Octatrack has, you have many different options. You have a chromatic keyboard, or you can have it playing the sample slot. You have. So if you want to play just many samples, you can play many samples in one track, but not at the same time. I mean, in polyphony, one cut the other. So there can be 64 samples playing in different moments of the pattern, but they will stop one to another, okay? Then you have this function that is called slice, because you can also slice the sample within the CD, but it has very auto-slicing facility that is very fast and easy to use. And then you have quick mute, that is just muting the track. And then you have this delay control. So when you press delay control, and you hit, you have from 9 to 16 are the track that you want to control. So 16 is 8, that is the master, and the tempo is here. Any questions or things that you want to see or?
Can I ask you something about the rhythm, the analog rhythm?
It's not here.
Yeah, I just want to ask you something about
Yeah.
Do you like worry about the tuning of the drums? Like, how do you tune?
Well, if I put my own samples, I know which tune has the sample. Otherwise, I try to tune it by ears.
So
if you put a sample, it's very easy.
You're not the sample though. I'm talking about
the synth part.
Yeah.
You can do it because you have chords and fine.
Yeah.
So you know that you can. With the chords is kind of one semitone, and when you put one semitone is one semitone. Okay, it's kind of precise, but you know, being analog, you need a little bit of time because the machine, and the more you use it, the more it loses the calibration. So if you are very into it, sometime or another you have to calibrate stuff again. Maybe after 3-4 years, if you are very precise into it. But otherwise, it's kind of responding kind of good. So there is no problem about this. And then let's see if we have the last thing. I show you some slicing. How it is. Okay, so I can take the sample. There is the audio adding button that in the old machine you go with function plus a button. Here you just press audio editing, so it's nice. And there is the slice option, and basically you hit slice and you decide how many slice. And for example, I say create slice grid, and I say 16, totally random, yeah? 16 slices. So now, if I put my keyboard mode to slices, okay? And I put the machine to, of course, slice on. I have the slices here. So I can play them. I can play them. Okay. Or I can put all the same slices. Or I can put all the slices, and I can put a LFO on the slice parameter. So if I go to the LFO and I select as parameter like source start, that is the slice, I put a random way, the multiplier to 16, the speed to the maximum, and the depth to the number of slices plus the central slice. So I have 16 slices, so the central slice is 8. I put a depth of 8, so it's going 8, 9 to 16, and then 8, 7, 5, 4, 2, 0. And I have to remember on the source page to put the center slice to the middle. So now it's time to do something like that. kind of stuff with these fixed things. And I think that if you don't have any question, I thank you for coming. I hope it was satisfying. Maybe we see us again.
Thank you.
Grande,